Nier Automata plays with many ideas and philosophies, but it all culminates into one message. So today, I want to talk about the sheer joy of Nier Automata's ending. I won't get into the game's narrative itself, or at least not the whole of it, but for this video, I don't really need to. Plus, there are other YouTubers who could sum it up and articulate it a lot better than I could. And, they have. But for those who don't know, the game is based on heavy themes of nihilism. The characters suffer, they agonize over the meaning of their existence, and they die and they are reborn to suffer again in the case of 9S. But that's not the overall point that Ending E is trying to drive home. I mean, once you finish the game, a credit sequence boots up. Pretty normal, right? But this one is a little different. Interactive titles and credit sequences aren't really new for games, but this one is really trying to tell you something. It's trying to teach you something. It enters a bullet hell sequence, in which you're a little arrow shooting beams to vanquish the creators of the game itself. I could go into the fact that this is quite literally, and honestly a little bit on the nose for me, the death of the author trope, but that might be a video for another day. It's a sequence where you kill the developers themselves, rewriting the story for yourself and the characters you've gone on this journey with. The game developers and staff are all enemies to defeat, and I won't lie, it's difficult. It's nigh impossible to defeat this yourself, simply because the sheer amount of enemies and obstacles are overwhelming. You will eventually die, and probably die a lot if you're me. Which makes what happens next all the more significant. Because the game counts on your mounting anxiety and frustration about not being able to beat this all alone. And every time you lose, a little message pops up. Is life meaningless? Is it all pointless? Are video games silly little things? Are you ready to give up? And the only thing that stopped me from just quitting and watching the ending on YouTube was one of the sweetest things I've ever seen in a game. Every time you lose, a message pops up from someone in the world encouraging you. Some messages say that they found it hard too, but they're waiting for you at the end of the tunnel. Some say that they understand the hardships that you're dealing with, but they're thinking of you, and you can make it. Some just say it's difficult, but it's all worth it. Some are just cheering for you. And with every loss, more messages appear, urging you on, keeping you going. And I give up on games pretty easily. So that was quite a feat that this game accomplished, having me keep going. Drawing strength from others is often how we humans, social creatures, get through most of our lives. I mean, I even think of myself. Where would I be without my friends, without the people who simply liked me enough to stick around for years? The people who have helped me out and who I have helped simply because they mean a lot to me and I love them. But this is significant because we can often draw strength from family and friends. But this encouragement comes from the kindness of strangers, people who know nothing about us, but chose to leave something nice to tell us we will get through this, that they're rooting for us, that they understand, but are confident we'll be okay. So we try again. But even then, all alone, it's not enough. And finally, the game asks another question. Do you accept help? Will you accept the hand of a stranger reaching out to you? A username that you don't recognize pops up, and they're offering you assistance. They're willing to help you. And once you accept, a swarm of your peers gather around you, and together you are a force to be reckoned with. Now let's talk about the music in this section. When you're fighting and struggling alone, there's a lone singer. But once you accept help and kindness, that singular voice suddenly becomes a chorus. In several languages, Weight of the World plays, surrounding and booming with voices. A beautiful example of the world helping each other, one kindness at a time. And the struggle is so much easier with others by your side. You just blast through the credits after that. And as you beat the credits, literally firing on and vanquishing the creators, you get to write the story for these characters you've grown close to for the duration of the game. And so the pods tell us that the cycle begins anew for these characters that we've spent so much time with. Will it be different? Will it be the same? Who knows? Who knows? That's up to them to decide for themselves, just like you. And at the very, very end, the final question. Do you have any interest in helping the weak? Will you sacrifice your data, all your items, achievements, and progress that you probably worked so hard to achieve to help someone else? Like someone helped you? Will you pass on this small act of kindness? The game emphasizes that you may not even like this person. They won't be someone you know, and you may never even be thanked. But will you still help someone who cries out for assistance? Will you help them experience the same amazing ending that you have? Will you help them receive this message that we all need each other? And I hit yes, absolutely immediately. Someone saved me, and in turn, I wanted to save someone else. I barely even cared when the game made a show of deleting all my data. I'd do it again. And so, if someone ever comes across a username with Gara in it, it might be me, and just know that I don't care about what I lost. I'm happy you got to experience the same beautiful ending that I did. That's the point. Even if the world seems meaningless and you're wrestling with haunting questions like the machines and androids, the point is that basic kindness from those who inhabit the world around us makes it worth it. Most of us had no second thoughts about deleting our file to help someone else, no matter how much the game stressed that this was permanent. After being helped, we wanted to help others. I and so many others had no problem deleting our progress to help someone else. A stranger, beat the credits. Someone we'll never meet, who may never thank us. We did it anyway. That's the point. I think that's the point of life. Maybe it's all worthless. Maybe there's nothing after this, but someone will reach out their hand to help you anyway. Maybe someone will brave it with you and help you through it while receiving your help in return. It does something quite genius. It establishes connections between people who will never meet each other. With someone you'll never see, never know, or, depending on whether or not you remember the username of someone who helped you, never even be able to thank. And at 2 a.m., in my living room in complete darkness, I cried. But then I was posed with a question, right at the end, that drove home the sacrifice that my fellow players made for me. People who didn't even know me, who didn't know anything about me. And yes, it's a comparatively small sacrifice in the grand scheme of life, but it still meant something within the scope of the game. It didn't have to be big, because it was significant. They sacrificed their hard work and save files for me, someone they didn't even know and would never meet. And that made me remember every time that some random stranger has helped me out. The time that I almost tripped and busted my face open on Manhattan Corner, and some random woman that I'd never met and would never meet again caught me, helped me up, made sure I was okay and smiled at me, wishing me a nice day and waving away my thanks simply because she was kind and wanted to help a stranger. Every time I fell asleep on the trains in NYC after a long shift and some nice man shook me awake just to make sure that I didn't miss my stop. The times when random shopkeepers just gave me a piece of candy or a sandwich simply because they were kind and wanted to brighten my day. And that made me cry harder. And so the point is, we all have each other. While it may be hopeless, though life is hard and cruel and quite honestly straight up trash sometimes, there are some who will lift each other up, some who will encourage each other and help each other, even if we won't be thanked, even if we won't be acknowledged. And this reminded me of that in a time in my life when I very much agreed with the nihilistic viewpoint, of the random acts of kindness that I've received from strangers and all the acts of kindness I've done simply because I wanted to help somebody out and make life easier for someone, simply because that's who I am, who we can be. Nier Automata taught me that the cycle of pain and cruelty has the potential to be never ending. But will you stay in the same cycle? Or will you try again with the help of others and rewrite the entire story? Because a future is not given to you. It is something you must take for yourself.